That's a great question. I think that there certainly is and I think you see this most clearly in a two-party system, that there really is a sense of my side is right. I think when you contrast that to coalition-style governments that you see more often in Western Europe, then you have more of a sense of consensus and moderation, and I think that that trickles down into the discourse that you see in the streets and you see on a more social level. But I think within the two-party system, and also because, American politics, one thing that was reiterated to me by both strategists and also politicians is the fact that it really is a full contact sport, and that there's not a lot soft about it, and there's nothing soft about it the closer that you get to election day itself, and that's when you see some of these most impassioned supporters. I think that it's a number of different things. I think that there are cultural factors that come into that. When I say cultural, I actually mean in this context popular culture. I think that we have very strong reinforcing of stereotypes that come through popular television. I think that the discussions that are had on Seinfeld are very different discussions than one sees at the cattle auction, for example, that we were at in Amarillo, Texas. So I think that there's a reinforcing of these cultural stereotypes, and the thing that's curious is that people are able to rattle them off. You only have to say, Chardonnay drinking, brie eating, and almost every American, I think, can continue that sentence. But I think you see a certain group that historically might have stayed is now able to move to Seattle or move to Chicago or move to New York, where there might have been less likelihood for them to do so in the past. So I think the migration is easier, and therefore you see more self-selection of people surrounding themselves with others that share their worldview. So it was refreshing to me that despite the disillusion that people see with aspects of politics that we have today, that there still is that desire to engage in discourse. The kind of flip side of that coin was what was disheartening to see was how entrenched so many of these mechanisms are that see politics remain in this partisan gridlock. That was the enormity of the problem was less than uplifting. I don't think it's necessarily, yes, I think it's possible, but I don't think it's necessarily of getting this group that's far on the right and this group that's far on the left to come and meet in the middle. I think it's actually, that is an aspect of it, but I think that could happen if the bridge is actually built by the centrists who are wildly unrepresented, both in media, in discourse, and also in voting. Those who have the hardest convictions and the greatest commitment to the system tend to live further away from the center. The people who are more moderate in their views aren't necessarily as deeply passionate, and therefore those are the ones who are the earliest and the easiest to turn off by negative campaigns and mudslinging and all of that. I think that if there were you're still dealing somewhere between 62 and 66% of total voter turnout, kind of election to election to election. And if that full third, or even half of that third, were to engage in the political system, I think that there would be politicians who would respond to that very much according to market principles. There would be a need there, and there would be politicians who would recognize that playing towards the center and having a more moderate tone to discourse and also to policy solutions would see the political spectrum start to close again. I think that it's seeing the Americans who aren't participating coming back into the fold and coming back into the tent, that might pull it together in a way that allows the two extremes to kind of soften themselves as well.